Welcome back, Kerbinauts. I'm Kurt Malthorn. This is my Kerbal Space Program series. We left off with the tragedy of Roderick Kerbin vanishing into the vast unknown. It has been days since last contact, and this is the first launch since. Bill and Bob have been hard at work figuring out the ins and outs of orbital mechanics. This rocket has been equipped with video cameras, and the entire launch has been meticulously planned, and the footage that they recover from this is the evidence they need to support their theories, and at this point, Roderick Kerbin has been confirmed to be solidly beyond conventional help with the current technology available. Kerbals are a little hesitant at this point to put more Kerbals in space until they figure out this whole rocket science business a little bit more securely. We're doing quite well for ourselves for science, though. I'm going for electrics, so I have solar panels next, and then I'll be going for larger liquid fuel rockets. Mostly because launches like this happen, as you'll see. So for now we're foregoing manned missions, and this, I just crammed all the science I could in here, and tried to get this to the moon. Well, the launch went by quite seamlessly. Unfortunately, I was about 400 meters per second short on my burn to intercept the moon, so I had to settle for high altitude science, because, yeah, that was it right there. Next launch. So I decided to ditch all the science, and at this point, my objective is to hit the moon. Literally. This is a moon impactor. That's the goal here. Making sure we understand where the moon is in space, and that we can actually intercept and impact it. In real life, impactors were used for geological science, as well as, I believe, the dust clouds that they kicked up were also studied for their chemical composition. At this point, I am mostly regurgitating things that I learned from Scott Manley's YouTube videos playing this game. And if you know that name, then it shouldn't be a great surprise that he was my inspiration behind this stuff. I wish I was half as knowledgeable, but I'm gonna have to try to make this interesting with narrative instead of all the cool science facts, because if you're watching this, you've probably seen Manly already, and you probably already know all this stuff. If by some miracle you haven't, go watch Interstellar Quest. I'm serious. I got nothing on Manly, so you'd be doing yourself a favor. Still here? Alright, let's watch this probe's demise, but first we're gonna send some science home. That SSDV signal is actually one of my favorite parts of the Chatterer mod. And with that, get to appreciate the sunset behind the moon. I do love this scenic. We actually have a color camera this time, that's fun. This is it for the probe. Just my luck, I hit the night side. And then it occurred to me I could possibly grab some science, except, yeah, it's, there's no connection. BAM! All for the name of science. And next up, it's basically the same rocket again, except this time, we're going to try to orbit the moon. Well, at first I was thinking, hey, that's actually easier, because all you have to do is get inside the sphere of influence, right? You don't actually have to impact it. You just get inside the sphere of influence and then burn to capture. Well, as long as you can control it. I have to have a communication link with Kerbin, and I don't have the DSN activated. I guess that's just one of the ways that I like to improve the realism of the gameplay a little bit. Check out the nav ball here. Now you may notice my orbit is actually very slightly inclined, and this was I'll be honest. It was accidental, but it was actually very fortunate because this meant that I wasn't actually going to be blocked by the moon. I was going to pass under it, and so all I had to do, like, I didn't have to worry about being on the far side of the moon when I needed to make my burn. See, I'm underneath it. So all I need to do is wait for Kerbin to rotate until I can have line of sight with KSC. At this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that I'll make it into orbit. And I'm probably just going to leave this in orbit, so I can grab those fancy science contracts that, are basically free cash when you have something already in orbit. I guess the Kerbals want to make sure the laws of physics haven't changed when they weren't looking. At this point, I noticed that my contract to orbit the moon hadn't actually completed. That's okay, we still got plenty of fuel, so just needed to bring the orbit down until it took. And finally, I'm back to a manned flight. Yes, Kerbal Congress, and I'm sure that's Congress with a K, has finally agreed to let us put a Kerbal in space again. Assuming I fix my staging, of course. We have proven the reliability of our rockets, and that we kind of know what we're doing now. The mishap with Roderick Kerman is now much better understood. Orbital flight is looking to become commonplace, and this flight is surely one of many to follow to bring Kerbals to space and to return them safely. Now, I was a little too eager to press launch on this, perhaps. So here I've got a polar orbit. And of course that means I'm going to be crossing over lots of biomes. So, I'm sure many of you are already onto what I'm about with this mission. I want to do the first Kerbal EVA in orbit. Yep, get lots of science for EVAs over various biomes, and I can't go on EVA. Yeah, there's my oversight. I have not upgraded the astronaut complex. And between life support and Kerbal construction time, this might be a problem. The good news is we have plenty of funds. The bad news is it's going to take 2 days to build it. The bad news is Valentina has no snacks, and she's going to have to go those 2 days. She can go 3 days. So we can do this. Thankfully, we can time warp, and here we are. Valentina is grumpy because of 2 days of no snacks, but you know what? She is a soldier, she powered right through it, and she is ready to do some science. I'm sure they were doing system checks. That's what it was. Plus, it would be really bad if Valentina were to vomit on her first spacewalk. It can be very disorienting, I understand. I wonder how the lights turn on and off. This is actually the first time I've used the community-sourced science messages. I keep forgetting to read them. I'm actually quite enjoying them. And if you're familiar with Kerbal Space Program at all, I'm sure you know that the gist of this is basically orbit Kerbin and over various biomes hop out and get a EVA report. You've successfully played hide-and-seek with mission control. Crud. I'm wondering whether the expletive was because you don't want to be out of sight like Roderick Kerman, or because it's that boring of a hide-and-seek game. I mean, it's in orbit, come on. Everything's better in space, right? Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I'm in space! That's the spirit, Val. That's the spirit. You wonder why you left your hot dog at mission control. It's so big. You wonder if you can see your house from here. Probably not. I'll bet Jebediah could. Planet Kerbin is blue, and there's nothing you can do. Is that a song reference? Mom calls, wondering where you are and when you'll be home for dinner. Sorry, Mom, I've been up here for 2 days longer than scheduled. Be back for dinner, and we'll be very, very hungry very soon. And Val is contemplating having a snack when she returns to the ship, but there's no snacks in the ship, unfortunately. Oh yes. Well, that's kind of the way it goes. So we carry on like this around the planet a few times, and well, I know I got the tundra and the poles. I know I missed the Badlands, but I think that's it. I got all the other major ones. Oh yeah, and the northern and southern ice shelf. Those are actually new since the last time I played Kerbal Space Program all that much. But actually, if Kerbals have lived underground all this time, then one of their main objectives in orbit is actually cartography, getting the lay of the planet. Maybe we were cutting a little close on the life support there, but then again, this mission wasn't intended to be this long, and future space flights, I'm sure, will be much better stocked. And Valentina will be happy to hear that, I'm sure. But eventually, it's time to bring ourselves home. Overall, I would call this mission a resounding success. Let's just drop our periapps into the atmosphere a little bit, and we are on course. Well, this will be the first successful return of the Kerbal from orbit back to Kerbin. Safely, we hope. Mission Control has its fingers crossed, waiting for word from the recovery ship that they have spotted deployed chutes. Oh, who am I kidding? This is post-commentary. I know she's fine. And a beautiful sunset splashdown. So what's next? Well, so far in this career, all of my probes have been purpose-built, like stack whatever I need to get the Delta V, and, you know, the stage that circularizes orbit is generally, you know, the final probe. That's, you know, I take that wherever I need to go. But that's actually not my favorite way to run this. I prefer to have, like, standardized lifters that can carry, you know, whatever upper stage, you know, payload that I want. So I design a probe, and then I select a standard lifter. So that's what I was doing here, standardized a 1 meter launcher, basically inspired by the Delta rocket family, specifically Delta 2. So this is the Tau rocket. At this point, I am almost ready for a size 1.5 lifter. I'm definitely pushing the capabilities of size 1, so I'll be working on that at some point very soon, but I haven't unlocked all of the, you know, technos I need. Alternatively, I could stick with size 1 and build outward. This is very common in Kerbal Space Program. Add some side boosters, etc. I don't know. I'll do that, but I like, for the early game, to just stick with the traditional sleek rocket shape. I know there are plenty of real-world rockets that do side boosters, and, you know, very large ones sometimes. You know, take some of the Delta 4 configurations, or, you know, SpaceX Falcon Heavy. Those are definitely a thing, but and I'll add on extensions as I need. But I'd prefer to have a sleek look to my rockets. Anyway, where I'm going next. Working on this contract I have for returning to Kerbin from a flyby of the moon. Now, it doesn't specify that this has to be manned, but I kind of want to put a Kerbal on this. But I'm doing it with no orbit tracking or maneuver nodes, because I still can't afford to upgrade the tracking station just yet. So it's going to be interesting. So here's what I came up with. I am pushing the weight limits of this launch pad to the very max with this thing. Those solid rocket boosters, they're mostly empty. They're just there to give it a little bit of a thrust kick at first, because the core stage here really doesn't have very much thrust to weight at all. It's like 1.2 G. You'll also notice the rather awkward fairing up at the top. That is because I'm using a smaller engine, and it was honestly more of an eyesore to leave it with a really obvious gap. So I have a fairing, and yes, that costs me fuel, but I'd rather it look nice. I'm so tight on the fuel, in fact, that one of those upper stage fuel tanks is partially empty. So I ended up with this really flat trajectory. I came in really shallow. It got to orbit fine, except for the part where I forgot some things. Yeah, I notice here that I'm, chewing through my electrical charge supply, and then I realize some idiot forgot to put solar panels on this thing. Yeah, that was bad. And then here I'm realizing, wait, this fuel tank shouldn't have been, should still be full, like I haven't even staged this yet. What's going on? Turns out, one of those decouplers I had enabled fuel cross-feed for the test launch of the Tau rocket. Yeah, and so I was burning all the upper stage fuel with the middle stage engine. Great job, me. Yeah, this was an abort situation. So here I am, just lowering my periapts back into the atmosphere so we can bring Valentina back, because she would not survive the trip to the moon without solar panels. Like, I might have been able to get away with an upper stage that wasn't fully fueled. I mean, I was already in orbit. I might have gone with that, but not with no solar panels. We're gonna have to try this again. Yeah. And then I realize I'm coming down over mountains. So I'm worried I'm gonna touch down and then just start rolling all the way down the hill, or the mountainside, rolling and, moving over the surface. Can't save, can't recover. I'm really worried it's gonna pick up enough speed to actually crash and blow up and kill Valentina, and that would not be a good thing. But we're fine, because I quick recover this thing. It's always the solar panels. Well, that was unhelpful for our budget. We don't have enough to upgrade the tracking station as it is, and more flights. Well, anyway. Here we are, a couple days later, the replacement rocket. We are taking off again. Previous issues have been dealt with. Valentina is headed for orbit, and hopefully the moon. We have a beautiful launch sunrise here. I love these scenes. Valentina is going to be spending a long time in a very cramped capsule. It seems like she's gotten the short end of the stick this episode, but, you know what? She is going bravely where no Kerbal has gone before, except Rodrid, and she has much more control. Sorry, Rodrid. Looks like Valentina got the last laugh. You will be remembered. But Valentina will be remembered longer and break a lot more records doing it. We are practically to orbit, and the question remains, what will the encounter with the moon do to my orbit, and will I have enough Delta V to get Valentina home? Find out next time on Kerbin Skies.